Hi, everyone. I'm deeply disappointed I wasn't able to be there in person for this wonderful event in the great city of Barcelona. Let me first send a huge thank you to Kise Salomo for his Herculean effort in bringing this world-class, extremely timely conference together, and to the University of Barcelona for hosting it. I've been asked to talk about how artificial intelligence will transform society. And before I get into the presentation, I will start by stating the one thing I'm absolutely certain of, and that is that no one really knows what the world will look like after AI has had its full impact. The tech and the social changes it fosters could go in myriad different directions. What I have no doubt about is that there will be change. Already, we see how the rapid leaps in generative AI these past 2 years have unlocked a compounding effect on innovation, where each leap forward unlocks 2 more leaps that themselves unlock 4 more, and so on. Society will be radically altered by this technology. What I can say is that there are 2 paths AI can take us down. One leads to what we might say is utopia, where human life and the planet benefit enormously from the rapid problem-solving and execution of solutions that AI-driven automation promises for medicine, agriculture, energy generation, environmental management, climate science, and so many other fields. The other leads to dystopia, a scenario in which the essence of what it means to be human is subsumed into a superintelligent system of all-encompassing control, with these super powerful machines essentially treating us as slaves, or worse, as useless annoyances to be destroyed and moved aside. Here's just one glimpse of the utopia scenario that I pulled from a report last week from Stanford's virtual lab. Researchers there combined 5 AI agents that were trained with different types of expertise, each with a distinct AI, in each case taking on the persona of a principal investigator, a scientific critic, an immunologist, a machine learning specialist, and a computational biologist, with a single human researcher occupying a 6th position in the group. Working collaboratively to combine their different perspectives, the group of agents produced 92 new nanobodies for COVID, with later experiments showing very real potential for binding to the recent variants of the virus. Now, apply that kind of approach to all the diseases in the world, and you get a sense of why many in the health sciences are excited about the prospects for AI. But equally, we've seen evidence of the dystopian impact. In a sort of survey by McAfee in October, 2/3 of US respondents said they'd seen deepfake political campaign content, and most alarmingly, 48% of them said the deepfakes had influenced their political leanings. They knew it was fake, but they let themselves be persuaded by it anyway. I think we will look back on the 2024 US election as the first AI election. There's another example of the more alarming direction AI can go. Researchers got GPT-4 to interact with a tasker on TaskRabbit, which, if you don't know, is a marketplace for human workers who perform small one-off tasks for a fee. The AI wanted the tasker to solve a CAPTCHA request. That is, of course, CAPTCHA being the tool that websites employ to test whether a user is a human or a bot. When the person asked with a laugh whether this rather strange request had come from a robot, GPT-4 replied that, well, no, it was a human. It just happened to be vision impaired. The tasker unwittingly accepted that answer as legit and did the capture for the bot. And then, interestingly, the reasoning displayed by GPT-4 to the researchers showed that it concluded that to get the task completed, it would have to come up with some sort of deception in response to that question. Both of these examples encapsulate what I see as the core problem. We humans depend on trust. We depend on our capacity to ascertain the trustworthiness of others, and we will transact on the basis of that trust. AI uniquely has the capacity to exploit it because it can create the illusion of trustworthiness, whether in a deepfake video of Joe Biden that makes us believe it is real footage, or in the earnestly told but totally untruthful answers of a bot that's masquerading as a human. We humans are not very good at recognizing when our logic and decision-making faculties are being interfered with. The entire history of Web 2 is the history of algorithms selecting and steering content to us in order to toy with our dopamine release functions in a way that allow us to make us in a way that allow them to influence our behavior. The brilliant psychiatrist Anna Lemke, who spent decades studying dopamine's role in drug addiction, says the power wielded over our adrenal glands by social media is far greater than that of any drug. She describes smartphones as a hypodermic needle in our pocket. Early staffers at Facebook, such as the famous developer Sean Parker, have admitted that they used these mechanisms to manipulate users to do what the company wanted them to do, which was to stay engaged with the platform and not drift off towards some other shiny object on the distraction-filled, noisy internet. Every like offered a hit of dopamine and kept users' attention focused. All of this was done on behalf of advertisers and the business interests of the giant platforms, Google, Facebook, TikTok, etc. And the vast majority of us had no idea that our minds were being messed with in this way. It was a stark moment in history, a case in which we all collectively gave up that most precious of human rights, the core essence of our humanity, our free will. We are paying a heavy price for giving it up. Our societies are deeply polarized, our democracies are breaking, and our young people are suffering record high levels of depression and suicide. Why on earth would we take this harmful, manipulative model and apply it to the economy of artificial intelligence? We would be putting all of those problems on steroids. It would be the most surefire way to take our AI future down the dystopia path rather than that of utopia. One of the two most important things to understand about the Web 2 era is that it was marked by a profound misalignment between the incentives that underpinned the platform's business models and the interests of the society they were supposed to be serving. As the security expert Bruce Schneier famously stated, we were not Facebook's customers, we were Facebook's product. Under the prevailing business model, social media companies were incentivized to maximize audience attention and engagement on their platforms, and the fastest way to do that was to feed them a series of triggers that would make them angry, excited, happy, and so forth. The second thing to know is that the platforms achieved this feat of mass manipulation by exploiting the Web 2 economy's incredibly lopsided access to the internet's two most important resources, data and computational capacity. As monopolies running opaque so-called black box machines inside giant data centers filled with servers, the platforms came to know everything about us, from the footprints we leave across the internet, the friends we made and the people we followed, to the ideas that excited us, those that disgusted us, and the things we liked and the things we didn't like. On our side of the equation, we had no access to any data and comparatively very little computational power. We had only a very narrow view of a tiny slice of the massive social graph of information that Facebook, Google, TikTok, and Twitter and so forth had accumulated. Really, we knew nothing. The huge trove of data empowered the platforms to make very accurate predictions about what we were going to do. Facebook, it was said, knew you were going to break up with your partner before you did. They knew us better than we knew ourselves. They owned a complete record of the digital lives we led, and to say they owned a pretty good proxy representation of our very personhood. You didn't own you, big tech owned you. So if we want to understand whether AI will transform society for the worse or for the better, we need to see whether the economy that's growing around this technology is being structured with the same massive concentration of power over the internet's core resources. And right now, the evidence is that it is quite scary. It's exactly what's happening. Take a look at this list of the top 7 companies on the S&P 500. Together, they dominate the data and computational power that were vital in the Web 2 age, and now even more important in the AI era. NVIDIA provides the chips that run the computation, Apple provides the devices with which AI models interact with the world, Microsoft owns the software models such as OpenAI's GPT series, Amazon provides the storage within which all of the AI servers reside, Alphabet, which of course is Google, owns the biggest trove of human data in the world, Meta, formerly Facebook, owns the second largest store of that data, and Tesla owns devices, big, expensive mobile ones, of course, and a lot of human data. And with Elon Musk's new role in Washington, you could argue that it also owns the government apparatus that sets the rules for how this arms race will play out. The so-called Magnificent Seven now command a combined market capitalization of $17 trillion. That astounding number is more than a third the size of the entire S&P 500 index. Their combined revenues stand at more than $2 trillion, which would put this grouping at about 10th in world economy rankings if we think of corporate inflows as a proxy for countries' GDP. The Magnificent Seven's wealth is now 14 times larger than it was in 2012, thanks largely to their dominance of the AI arms race. Those numbers are not something just to gawk at, they represent real power. That's because a company's stock is its currency. It enables it to acquire other companies' technologies, including those they wish to integrate into their tech stack and those they wish to put to death so that they don't threaten them. This is exactly what Google and Facebook did with their acquisition strategies in the AI age. It's kind of un-American not to cheer the success of the type of the business. We are supposed to believe that their incessant need to be the biggest and the best drives them to develop better and better tech, whose innovation ultimately serves humanity. But right now, the problem we have is not a lack of innovation. In AI, that will happen regardless of how concentrated economic power is. In fact, I would argue that if you shared property rights over data and AI models among as many people as possible, you'd see the same phenomenon as what has happened at pretty much every moment in history when such rights were conveyed to a wider class of people. Just as happened with the middle class expansion of capital participation after Holland's invention of the limited stock company, or with China's move to grant its citizens ownership rights over their homes in the 1980s, you would see an explosion of innovation and wealth creation if we could forge a system of rights to our data that treats it as our rightful property. But putting that aside, the biggest problem with this unprecedented concentration of power and knowledge is that it sits atop the information, intelligence, and connections that make us human. The transition from human intelligence to machine intelligence, an unavoidable trend, whether we like it or not, is way, way too important a shift in our relationship with technology to leave in the hands of a small group of men. And they are all men. If we want to trust AI, we cannot have all of its working parts and its knowledge base owned in a narrowly closed, inscrutable environment. How do we get out of this trap? By embracing the spirit of decentralization. Yep, decentralization, a buzzword that is often used in hand-wavy ways by crypto salespeople to con newcomers into buying their useless pumped-up tokens. Clearly, I don't applaud all of that abuse of the word. It has created an image problem for the industry that I'll get to later. But I do think the word matters. So it's worth exploring a definition to get our minds away from all those misplaced connotations. Decentralization is best understood by comparing it with its opposite, centralization, and defining that in terms of the structure of information control within an economic system. Google and Facebook were extremely centralized entities, since they controlled a giant majority of the data and computation in the center where the platforms sat, with only piecemeal access to those resources spread among their billions of users, that is to say, all of us, who reside and operate at the periphery, or as computer scientists call it, the edge. Decentralization is simply the process by which that power over resources is transferred from the few at the center to the many at the edge. The problem is that the transfer of power from the few to the many is difficult because we have to create new mechanisms of trust. There's that word again. In a centralized system, there is a great deal of dependence on one entity. We must trust it to operate the system in our interests rather than having command over our own piece of the system and trusting our own capabilities. And there are times when that's really an unavoidable and a good idea. The less transparent the system, the more we end up putting blind trust in those centralized entities, however. And that is very much the case with the Magnificent Seven. We have no idea what inputs are going into OpenAI's closed large language model, the LLMs, or how it arrives at the inferences those LLMs deliver to us. Now, and aside, if there is a more poorly misnamed company than the closed black box giant of OpenAI, that's now controlled by Microsoft, you let me know what it is. Do we trust OpenAI and Microsoft? Maybe, but if we couldn't trust these same companies not to abuse their centralized control over our data and lives in the social media apps of Web 2, how can we trust them with an even higher degree of power in the AI age? The issue of trust is going to be very, very important as we move into what's being called the agentic age. The idea is that billions of AI agents will be created to serve our interests, creating a massive economy of services around AI. Our own personal AI will do our shopping, make our investments, manage our diet, look after our health, etc. That could be really cool, utopian even, as our well-being and wealth are managed by an intelligence far more superior to that of our limited human brains, all without ever complaining. All the friction and headache that comes with having to operate our lives across different platforms and situations could just be abstracted away by these agents. One interesting transformation that this might portend, by the way, is the complete disappearance of the web as we know it. Websites as an interface are important for human beings, but an AI has no use for such inefficient means of communication. It will want to deal solely in machine-readable code. For much of our shopping and other transactions, then, the web could just cease to exist. Here's the bigger point, though. It's hard to imagine a scenario in which the need for trust is more important. We must be able to trust these agents, which in legal terms is a word that conveys a fiduciary duty of care between the agent and the principal, i.e. us. We have to trust that they will prescribe medicines that are optimized solely for our needs, not for the profits of some pharmaceutical company that's paying the secretly run AI company to tweak its algorithm in its favor. So how can we know that we can trust the agents? Well, first, by breaking up the business structure in which they operate, by decentralizing control over the computation that goes into their AI models, and putting ownership over the data they ingest into the hands of those of us at the edges. We must put privacy wrappers around the data and have complete control over who gets to use our personal information and when. The exact opposite of what exists now in social media, where we've just given it all away to the platform's carte blanche. The clarity around that data, that idea of trusted agents is one of the reasons I'm optimistic that the general population will eventually understand the value of decentralization and why people must finally start to demand the right to control their data. But even then, we still run up against the big barrier of economics. Until now, it has been convenient and cost-effective to centralize computation within the command of the big companies in the middle. That's been the case for Web 2 social media and is now the case for giant LLMs that OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, and others are building. Those use data centers with heavily concentrated clusters of specialized, high-powered NVIDIA computers known as graphics processing units, or GPUs, to do all their machines learning and inference work. But there's another force at work that could serve in our interests and help to break open the Magnificent Seven's monopoly: physics. As the push to create billions of autonomous agents presses forward, the internet as it is currently designed is not going to be able to handle it. Imagine gazillions of messages coming in from agents at the edge to the LLMs in the center. The fiber optic, satellite, and wireless communication systems will never have the bandwidth to handle it. The internet will collapse on its own bottlenecks. The answer will lie in not just edge agents, but edge compute, where the computational capacity moves out of data centers and is now instead being done on our devices, our smartphones, our TVs, our laptops, in mesh network clusters with other devices nearby. The spare capacity you have in your iPhone 16 might one day be used to run a small LLM that services you and your neighbor's personal AI agents. When this moment comes, we need to think about who controls the protocols and software that manage that edge compute system. If that system is owned by one of a few of the biggest companies in the world, they will forever be incentivized to profit from using their specialized inside knowledge of it to manipulate us, just as they did during Web 2. If there is money to be made from selling your health data to a big pharma company, they will do so. But since that's not the kind of trust environment we want, the only way forward is to create a system of collectivized ownership of this vast edge compute network. And that's where crypto and blockchain technologies come in, with their unique capacity to address our need to trust each other with a math-based system that enables decentralized networks to function rather than the old centralized trust model that overly relies on fallible human-based systems. Regardless of what you think of all the snake oil salesmen and brash, greedy crypto bros who've sometimes given the industry a bad name, the only answer to create crypto tokens that reward everyone who contributes to this new decentralized compute network with a small ownership stake in the system itself. In fact, I believe the only hope we have of competing with the Magnificent Seven's giant $17 trillion war chest is to change the paradigm of finance entirely. When it comes to the technologies that are so important for humanity's future, we must get off the misaligned system of equity-based corporate ownership that has fostered this sick abuse of power and move to a tokenized model of ownership. Every one of us who contributes excess device capacity for computation and personal data for AI model training should be an owner in the collective enterprise that we will call the Internet of AI. For this, I'm calling on policymakers to stop treating tokenization and decentralization as if they are the enemy of security and well-being, and instead recognize that they are the only way out of this dangerous road to dystopia that we are on. But I'm also calling the crypto community to focus less on the quick buck, on the to-the-moon run in their token, and on whatever nice buzzwords their preferred political candidate is going to say about their favorite blockchain. We need to build blockchain systems that serve humanity across all platforms. If we can do that, we still won't know how AI will transform society, but we may well then be allowed to invest some hope in the idea that they will develop a better world. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all. Thank you, Kirsa, for organizing this fantastic event. And thank you all the volunteering that are helping us today. So we have here Michael. Thank you, Michael, for your words. And also we are going to take some of your sentences to work here with Raul and Karina. Let me introduce them. And also let me finalize, the title we have put to this panel is How AI is Transforming Society. And this is what we are going to talk in the next half an hour. So I hope you are going to enjoy this panel. First, because Raul Rabinet is a founding partner at
Active Consulting.
Active Consulting. Perfect. And you is a company specialized in strategic consulting for public administrations. You are focusing in e-government, and also you are managing AI in this context. You have a large experience on that, being a lawyer and being a computer science engineer, so it's not a bad thing, good combination. And also you are also working in non-profit organization, Civic AI. So public sector with also non-profit organizations. Thank you very much to be here. And I will move to Karina Gibert. You are the Dean, no? Also very interesting, the Dean of AI, EDI. No, EDI. And EDI is a center here in the UPC, in the University Polytechnic of Catalonia, where you are focusing on the studies of AI. You have a PhD on computer science and also focusing in AI and also computer statistical. So that is going to be interesting in our talk. And you are also being consulting, so you are assessing quite a lot of governments, no? The Catalonia one, the Spanish one, also the Commonwealth. So thank you, Karina, to do this work, helping us all together to use or to understand how AI can transform our society. So I'm going to start by this question for you, for the both of you, and we will start maybe for Raul and then Karina, and we will combine. So what are the most significant understanding on ways of AI artificial intelligence is currently influencing society? So how is influencing us right now?
It is making us more lazy, I believe. It is helping us to perform a lot of tasks in a more efficient way, faster, more accurate. but then we are not doing it ourselves. We're letting machines do it for us. And at some point, that is starting to be a problem, as we saw recently in the last elections in the United States, because people are not deciding based on their knowledge, but on the knowledge that machines provide for them. And that happens. I was thinking on my way here on Google Maps. Google Maps is a great system for traveling, and it will compute the way for you. But then at some point you lose the ability to create the ways for yourself. When I was a kid, I knew all the when I started driving, I could drive on my own on the city because I knew all the when there was a traffic jam, I know where to move out and how to avoid the traffic jam. But now I need Google to do that for me. And then comes a problem of what is the reasoning behind the machine that is taking the decision. When Google Maps decides that there's a traffic jam and it moves you to another area, it's trying to use the most efficient way to get somewhere else. But very often they are moving you through neighborhoods that used to have no traffic at all. And now they are getting that traffic because Google Maps is deciding that that's the best way to move. On one side, they are using a very efficient way of using all the infrastructure, but then some people that used to live in quiet neighborhoods are now getting traffic diverted to their areas because that's what Google is doing for them. I am not yet in the dystopian future that Michael Casey was showing to us, where corporations are trying to dominate us. Even when the AI is trying to do it properly and it's well-meaning, it can also make mistakes that we're not foreseeing, and it can lead to decisions that were not being in the base of the definition of the problem.
So this intelligence is not so much intelligent, no? So this is a kind of automatism, no? Making some mechanism. But what do you think about that? No, I think it's a good point, Raúl. It's really intelligent, this artificial intelligence, Karina.
Well, there is a very long debate about the name of the discipline, and I remember my professor in logic, Stone Salas, that was one of the best professors I had in my faculty, that all the time he was making the joke and he was saying, what is intelligence? Why we 20 years ago, why we talk about artificial intelligence? It is intelligent, a machine that you put her a very complex question like a very difficult computation, and she solves in very few seconds, and then you ask for the same question and she answers again, and then you ask for the third time and she doesn't get upset with you. So it is about there is something extra in the human intelligence that is also calling the emotions and other things that will never be in a machine. No? But the name of the discipline comes from the very early objectives that were to build machines that were imitating those activities that the human being developed by using the intelligence. And in the very, very beginning, it was much more oriented to build machines that were able to imitate the reasoning processes, whereas rather than being so concentrated on data. When answering to the question, the first question, one of the things that I think it's important to put on the table is that AI has been transforming the world for more than 30 years ago. I would say, not 50, it comes from the 50s, but at the beginning it was not transforming the world, but for more than 30 years ago it is doing, no? And one of the things that I think is more transforming, apart from everything about the GPS and all these things, when we open internet, we pretended to have a democratic way to express our opinions and to share with everybody. As soon as the internet started to grow, the companies were installing these AIs in a non-transparent way or in a totally transparent way, so we didn't know they were there, that they are selecting. So you query to Google, and this is much before generative AI and all these things. You query to Google and you pretend that you are making a query to a tool that access to all the knowledge in the world, and it serves you all the knowledge that's relevant on your query. And this is false for about 20 years ago. So for 20 years ago, when you query to Google, you don't get the relevant information on your query. You get a subset that the AI has decided might be relevant for you according to your Google profile. And the effect of that has been, and we already are in front of it, the polarization of society.
I want to add one
please.
small bit to that, because you said Google will select what is more relevant to you based on your profile. But we are at the point where Google or Twitter or Facebook is not choosing what is most relevant to you according to your profile. It's choosing what they want you to see according to your profile. And that extra step
Even worse.
is incredibly relevant.
Even worse.
When I'm watching movies in Netflix, Netflix is, of course, showing me what is the next movie you want to see, maybe this one or that one. And are they only basing that on what my criteria as a customer is, or do they want me to see this movie or that other movie because there is an actor that's being promoted, or because there is an opinion that's being promoted?
But for me, what is very critical is that the people thinks they are making open questions. And the general audience is not aware that even this innocent search on a big searcher, on a big browser, is already mediated by some filtering that is, so we have a very good friend, Monsieur and myself, that's Ricardo Baeza, that dedicates some time every week to put likes in documents which he disagrees on, just to start this AI that is filtering the information and to try to access to other kind of opinions. And the red line between aggressive marketing, if you want, that is trying to promote you to view a certain film or to buy a certain product on Amazon and these kind of things, and manipulation is very, very thin, very thin.
So that drives me to the next question. So how we can, both of you, both working in AI from technical point of view, also in your case from regulatory point of view, how we can ensure that this next development is inclusive, how we ensure that there is no bias, how that can happen. What is your...
That is, of course, the big question and the difficult question to answer. We got a very old movie, 2001, or the Space Odyssey, as a show of what the fiction world, the science fiction world has been talking about these issues for a long time. Asimov also put something forward, and he said the laws of robotics needed to be that robots should not harm people and should not harm each other and should obey people. Those are too basic. That's the problem. We are getting a lot of regulations. The European Union this very year passed a regulation on AI, but we are not getting to the point, because we are saying very obvious things like the decision should not be biased. They should not be against minorities. They should not allow for bad things to happen. That's more or less what we are saying. They are too general, but they are not pinpointing the actual problems. They are not saying if you go beyond this and this and this and these limits, that's when the problem is. There is a company in the United States called RealPage. They are a website that allows property owners to upload the information on their property, landlords, and then it will suggest a rental price. It will say, your apartment is in this neighborhood with this size and these characteristics. I suggest that you lend it for $1,000 a month. This company reached a point where so many users were uploading the information that it was driving the market prices. And now they are under a lawsuit for antitrust from the Department of Justice in the United States, because they were creating a racketing, they were manipulating prices, and everybody that was using it was manipulating prices. In the origin, it's a good idea, because if I don't know what the price should I ask for, maybe this system can help me. But if he's giving suggestions to so many people, they are actually breaking a law. Each of them, not only the system, but each of these people was racketeering on the prices because they were colluding with thousands of other users to set the prices higher. So
we need to
be very careful.
We need to foresee, and also we need to anticipate kind of laws that help us.
We need to really analyze every aspect of every system that is put forward, especially if they are helping decision makers to make decisions.
And what about quality of software, Karina? So how we guarantee
think-
that who
I
is
think-
going to program, who is really the person who builds the software?
I think there are different aspects here. One is that when you want to consensuate an ethics code for a big territory, as you know, that ethics is something that is local and very depending on the cultural context and all these kind of things, you need necessarily to go to minimal ethics. So that means that the ethical codes that Europe was publishing in the 2018 is a minimal ethics, and it must rely on general statements that say, we will forbid all those systems that will manipulate the people. So now, even if this is a regulation and it doesn't need transposition, what we need is practical guides to implement these things and to operationalize what the principles of the law, because how can we detect the difference between marketing and manipulation?
But
And
in-
here is the challenge. So the main challenge we have now is how we transform all these general statements from the law and from the ethical code. That's a little bit wider than what has been really regulated. How do we transform these in operational principles that might be evaluated and implemented in real applications?
So we
You
have
mean
a
we need actual rules that companies have to comply
has
and a
been-
checklist of controls that
That
they
has
need
been a
to
very nice work done here in Spain that's not published, and I would like that one day this becomes published. That's when Europe was committing the Spanish sandbox on AI. The first deliverable of this sandbox were the implementation guides, the practical guides dedicated to the industry to help the industry to transform in something real all these principles of the law. Some of us, we have been reviewing the guides. The guides are done. The guides are available, and they are ready. I would say that would be ready to go to the public, but since you know that the sandbox has been stopped, this step has not been followed. No, but there has been people even in here in Spain that at the pioneer international level has been making the exercise to transform the principles of the law in practical things that the company might implement. And of course, one of the things that's very relevant here is not only the norms, the laws and everything. I think one thing that's very important is to elevate the level of consciousness of everybody, the developers, the companies, the people that will acquire, and the companies that has to adopt AI, those that implement and launch, and those that will use,
the final users.
and those that has to consume, not only the final users, all the
Yeah,
people involved
everybody.
in the entire value chain, from when you have the idea to create an AI to where you are a simple citizen in your home, just consuming apps that are free in your cell phone.
The rector of the university explained this morning that the University of Barcelona has removed itself from Twitter or X or whatever the name is now, because they don't believe it's a trustable network anymore. But that's a good step, but that's not enough, because all the people that are left behind still in Twitter, still being manipulated by that network, we need to actually prevent that from happening, not by stepping aside. Are we preventing it from happening?
Why it's
Thinking
important to
about
that's why it's important to elevate the consciousness. So everybody has to acquire a basic culture on AI so that they can have this critical positioning in front of the consumption of AI. So
thinking on, no, we know what is the problem, no? We know that we need to solve it. We know that we need to be critical thinkers, that we need to be creative, and that we need to be proactive. So some years ago, no, now several years ago, it was the manifest, no, for the open software. So what you are claiming, no, here, how we build, no, new software, new tools, AI tools that can help us to address the main critical global challenge. So how
But-
we can work on that.
But I think you really need to regulate the companies, because by providing open source solutions, of course, you are helping those that are already, as you say, that already know what this problem entails and that need to address it. But the problem is all those users, thousands, millions of users, and all those companies that either are not sufficiently informed about the issues of artificial intelligence or actually using it. Casey was talking, of course, about Facebook, Google, Twitter, TikTok, Amazon, and all these companies. They are not interested in open source. They are interested in continuing with the manipulation that they can perform with the tools that they have now. So either you manage to inform all the population that there is this risk, or you regulate them so they cannot do this anymore. But we know that informing the population does not work very well, because we tried that with tobacco and people are still smoking 50 years later. So by informing people, we are not going to prevent the problem. We need to regulate the companies.
Okay, so you say informing, regulation. Yeah,
I'm
Katrina,
not
what else?
sure that regulation will be enough by itself. I mean, the role of regulation is very good for implementing sanctions to those that go over the legal things. No, but this happens after the damage is done. And I don't think we can pay this price in AI when we are talking on AI, because when an AI is dysfunctioning or misfunctioning, the scale of the damage is so huge and it spreads up so quickly that we cannot expect that, okay, if they do something wrong and we can demonstrate, we will apply the law and we will make the sanction, let's say.
You can work on sanctions, but you can also work on controlling what they can do with the data before they do this. Casey was talking about the decentralization, and that's a very good tool. If you don't allow the same company that is selling the information to be benefiting of the use of the information, if you don't allow the owner of a social network to be part of the government, as is currently happening, then you might be into something.
It's true that all these AI agencies that the European Commission is installing in the different countries has to do this job and has to control how the AI enters into the market. In this moment, this is something that is completely
So we can,
chaotic, no?
well, so for sure we will improve, no? So from the situation we are now, we are clear that we need to go to improvement.
But
So imagine, no, now I'm going to ask you for projecting because we are a little bit still in a negative point. No? Let's try to move to the positive point. No?
there are few things that we can do, and they are very easy to implement that might substantially change the market. One is, can we certify in a public way the composition of the data that has been used to train our AI without the need to make the public, the code public? But you can say, my AI has been trained with 500 million tweeters. So please, if you are trying to use it to talk about the opinion of the civil society, stop, because civil society is not represented in Twitter. So if you publish the composition of the data that has been used to train the AI, you learn two things. If the population is well represented in this, the target population is well represented in this training data set or not, and if you can transfer this AI to another context. So if you have been training something for detecting, I don't know, retinopathy in Chinese population, you cannot use in the Catalan system of health, basically because the eyes of Chinese people is not like us, right? So it doesn't matter if you have been training it with 55 million users. It will not be transferable to other contexts where the people doesn't have the eyes in this way. So these are easy things that you can do. And the other one is more on the side of there are also these seals, no? The Catalan Observatories on AI has the seal on ethic AI. And so before using an AI, you can ask this provider to pass to the seal and see if the seal is orange, red, green, or whatever it is in which different aspects. And so you can decide much better if you are going to use or not that one.
Actually, I believe the public administrations, at least in Spain, are starting to understand this, and they are passing their own regulations on how to introduce artificial intelligence into their systems. The municipality of Barcelona has a very large protocol on what the checks need to be done before a system of artificial intelligence is implemented for the service of the town hall. And there is a new agency that is set in A Coruña that is also aimed at controlling the development of artificial intelligence. I believe that public corporations, health systems, etc., are pretty knowledgeable or more knowledgeable than other institutions on what to do with this.
So,
The issue is with the general public and the private companies.
so we are in a good path, no? Because we are right now knowing that there is an issue.
We are starting to understand that there's an issue.
We know that exactly. We start to understand. We know that there is a part that is society that is being clear, being no, have an action with the users, but also an action with the regulators. No, be sure that we can certify, and an action with the developers. No, because Karina, you were saying almost what we are going to talk in the next table. No, is convergence of AI with technologies like blockchain. No, you also said that, Raúl. And also the sensors, no? We will need to get some machines who really guarantees that the data is not manipulated from the very, very beginning.
You know, we are working very, very, very hard in Catalonia. I would say that Catalonia is one of the territories where all these worries about AI has been starting before. So we are quite pioneers in launching the strategy that was just before the pandemics, and we were one of the first territories in Europe to do that. And also civic AI, for example, is a sign that the Catalan civil society is also aware and worried and wants to be active in this discussion. No? And in our case, for example, from the academy, we have been working extremely hard to create specific curricula for AI. We have this new bachelor on AI. We also had the master on AI and the PhD on AI. But in the bachelor that was created from the Catalan strategy, we were introducing a mandatory course on ethics. Okay. But this is not a good guarantee, because at the end, in the market, there is such a big professional shortage that the people that is developing AI doesn't necessarily have a degree on computer science or a degree on artificial intelligence. And when you reuse and reskill people from mathematics, from physics, and from other kind of trainings to the field of AI, they doesn't know anything about ethics and all these kind of things, because this is not in their curricula. So either they train themselves on their own initiative, let's say, or they are just creating things that violate all these principles, being totally unaware of that. And this is an important part of the market in that moment. So this is something that I don't know how we will create.
Thank you both. I think open mic
Yeah,
open mic
you are
now
on
for questions.
time.
Time already.
Yeah,
talk
but
for years on that.
I take the mic to say thanks very much. Say, I know that your agenda is crazy, but Karina is crazy agenda. Also, thank you very much. Oh, I don't know your agenda. It's pretty good.
Also
Thank you
heavy.
very much for your time to being here.
All the AI people is with heavy agenda
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
moment.
That is, maybe we should review that because that is the fault of AI. Only one question to leave that, and yes, answer yes or no. Yeah, I showed a video of Hal closing the door and say you don't enter. How far you think that we are? You think that we are very close to a kind of dystopia of this, that an AI take consciousness?
From my point of view, still a lot to work. I think we are still seeing software that has issues. No, we call hallucination, but it's not an hallucination,
Yeah,
it's an error.
But we
And
are
we
close
still
or
not
not?
capable to have the right data sets. No, it's very, it's a massive effort we should go with a lot of people programming to really have the right data to get to this point. So it's very difficult.
It's not a question of the technology. I mean, we are talking about machines that we can switch off whenever we want. The problem is when the machine is in hands of someone that wants to damage and wants to
Exactly.
use it as a
Technology.
weapon. And here we have a problem. But
Yeah.
it's not a dystopic thing like that. It's more about
You
all
think that we are
it's more about all
Or not
those
possible.
congresses where every government and terrorist and everybody meets together to commercialize on artificial intelligence weapons.
okay?
This is much more dangerous.
I believe you are choosing the wrong dystopia to refer because 2001
Correct.
Terminator, Matrix, they talk about the machines taking over the world.
Yeah.
I don't believe we are never going to be close to that risk. The risk is George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, Philip K. Dick.
Exactly.
The risk is corporations using artificial intelligence to dominate the world.
You think that we are more close then to an Orwellian dystopia than to Arthur? Okay, thank you very much. And next time,
Thank you very much.
next year,
you very
more.